Is the model of spiral dynamics compatible with integral? In summation, integral is a 4-quadrant system to help you understand the progression of consciousness and how we are functioning at any given time. Many people dislike the idea of pinpointing individuals into specific categories, labels, and boxes, including myself. But its commentary was building on the work of Claire Graves, which is generally assumed to be compatible with Don Beck's spiral dynamics as well as Christopher Cohen. And the model added the concept that linearity is not necessary in how to understand evolution. That was what I pulled out from the integral discrepancy, which means you don't necessarily have to go through a specific rigid process for evolution. But is it compatible? I have established its compatibility as accurate, precisely. People who are very concrete and they want things to match up perfectly, in the sense that Ken Wilber said stage 12 is supermind, then yes, the compatibility is 100%. If you were to label Don Beck's stages more things, it would be compatible with integral. And I'm making this declaration for one or more reasons. I think it's necessary to say this. That's it. That's the compatibility. It's 100% compatible. There is no question about it. I used to believe there were questions on it. I no longer think there are any questions whatsoever. If you want to believe that you're in a stage of integral and apply the linear concept, you can directly correspond it to the spiral dynamics map, and it will be accurate. And as we evolve, we will evolve with the compatibility of the integral map. But I also want to add my own 2 cents. That as you evolve, you will be carrying things over from previous stages. So just because you advance to a high stage, it doesn't mean you don't have traces from the bottom, and it doesn't mean you don't have traces from the top. And the way this can make sense is that there are only 4 or 5 major stages, quote-unquote stages, or sections of how your brain is pulling onto things based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And some people have disliked Maslow's hierarchy. They don't think it's accurate. They don't think there's a progression that's linear like that, which could be true, but I've decided that it was true. There is some kind of linear progression that corresponds to the hierarchy itself. That was my contribution, I'd like to think. One day I hope people corroborate me. They find peer review work on it that can put me on the radar for contributions in the psychology field and make some money off of that. Now, when it comes to integral, the nonlinear aspect was a big revolutionary concept within spiral dynamics, and I think it was at the core of all their confusion. And what it comes down to is you need to factor in the notion of general proximity based upon collective ideology or understanding, meaning how people will perceive things causes a destiny for a general progression, but there's going to be outliers. And more importantly, there's going to be things that are unique based on the bottom stages and the top stages. And because of repetition, it doesn't matter where you are, this phenomenon can take place, and the uniqueness and diversity takes place based upon that premise. Now, this means that there's the possibility that integral is completely different from my model, because anyone could be on a different part of the graph, and that's explaining why we function the way we function. But I say, it's not that you're on some other part of the graph, it's you're lagging behind or you're way above the current stage that you think you are. So, you may have to readjust how you place yourself on these graphs that may be made. Also, they're going to have to make integrals, they're going to have to make a program, if they haven't already, that's 8D, that factors in the negatives and positives. So I'm sure they've had it and they just haven't marketed it. They should. But the reason why they should market it, because I want my spherical model to be known. The spherical model is the supposition that because of the multiple dimensional nature of this whole phenomenon, through AI, there'll be the capacity to uncover patterns that give a wider grasp on the nature of that progression, to further offer more information for similar scenarios, similar people, and things like that. So if you have an algorithm, I used to say it was going to be quantum computers, but now I'm saying, why don't we just use the AI? And now that IBM is synthesizing their software or hardware, I don't have to look at that, with AI, it's the perfect time to really look into it. I'm sure they're doing it behind the scenes. Meaning the premise is, you use the patterns of what is happening, and what's the data that's available, to ascertain where someone will be in 5 years, or even the capacity for someone to be somewhere in 5 years, or what is necessary to change that course in a way that's manageable for that specific individual. This is something I want to patent. I know people are going to make it because AI is already doing it. And if someone comes up with an invention, technically, that predicts all this, the companies can't go public with it until they take it up with me. Because I've been trying to patent this for a year already, a year and a half, with integral. The concept that you can predict trajectory based on proven data that with a system, or AI in this case, that extrapolates from all that data. And with quantum computers, you have all that computing power to strengthen the AI's ability to reason. That the wisdom is, you would be heretical to believe that's not what's possible. Like last year or 2 years ago, I would have been considered a crazy person for saying something like this. But nowadays, you're a crazy person to not say this. So this is what I want to patent. Using current data to predict future events or future happenings with people's choices, whether small or big. The concern is if companies are doing this already, I don't think they'll want to admit it. They'll want to hide it. So any company that's utilizing this technology, they're going to have to go through me if they want that program. It's very simple, because I've been raising this question on predicting future behavior and trying to patent it for already 2 years or so. So if companies are deciding that they're going to keep this technology hidden, don't think you'll be successful at that for long before discovering that someone who's been trying to do this for years is being pushed aside because they don't have enough credentials and power to navigate those pathways. So in summation, let's get back on track. I got a little off topic. The compatibility is there, but there's going to be divergences because the way you have to understand integral is a lot more complex. And the starting point for integral is to make sure that the 8D model gets put on a program so it's easy. Then you'll master that and eventually have a program to predict trajectories, and you'll synthesize that with AI and quantum computing eventually, and then everyone can have their personal guidepost for moving their trajectory away from unhealthy habits and addictions, and and the recommendations that are practical, like, oh, you should go for walks for 25 minutes a day, working out, because if you don't, then you'll probably end up doing X, Y, and Z. Those capacities will be standard and will be revolutionary for how people run their lives. Again, they have the technology to do this, and they're not doing it because companies are trying to hog as much data as they can. They're also trying to keep private the scariness with what they can do with this. So the video is not only about patenting, it's about the compatibility. So we'll end off by saying integral should work on that program, and eventually you'll have a flexible multi-dimensional map that will be synthesized with the quantum computing functions. And the principle behind the spherical is simply you have much more data. It's ever flexible. Oh, and it also factors in the parameters keep expanding and shifting. So the whole point of the sphere is to say anything could change in society that would change the paradigm for which we once thought things would be like. So if the way you understand reality changes, then there'll be a change in what's necessary. That's one example. So that's more of like a epistemic example, but then there is the rational example. If the people are making decisions that the system didn't factor in, it would change the whole system. So if you become ever flexible, then you change the necessary advice. If people change, so that's if people change in an unexpected way, but also people change on the map itself. So you're factoring in the map itself and how things normally happen versus how they're likely to happen. And if there's an anomaly, that also gets factored in to the data, to how often, with regard to probability and statistics. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having a system like this where you kind of know everything that's going to happen. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If only you could use any piece of technology. It's like seeing a seer, someone who knows everything, see everything. The seer is not a dangerous person. It's the type of seer they are. So it depends who has that technology. So you want to make sure the technology is in the right hands, and that's as much as I can comment on. But even then, once you get used to something, you're not going to worry about it too much. And then people are going to then focus more on the defenses. Like, how do I make sure that people are not predicting what I do and then making a decision based on that? So whenever you have something that seems scary, there are ways to defend. There are ways to protect, to secure yourself. That's why I don't believe it's going to be an issue in the future.